Throughout the 1990s, if you were looking for an action figure of your favorite Marvel character, then Toy Biz was your company. Throughout that decade, there were tons of different characters released in figure form. And while they always got slightly better as time went on, the fact is that most of the time they were all done in the similar 5-inch scale with the basic 5 to 10 points of articulation. Then, in 2001, Toy Biz released a new Marvel toy line that would change everything. Spider-Man Classics. Spider-Man Classics was practically a whole new breed of action figure. Based on the world of Spider-Man, the figure stood in the 6-inch scale and combined incredible detailing with a jaw-dropping amount of articulation. Each figure came in an awesome clamshell-style packaging that included a comic book and a display base for the figure. It was clear who Toy Biz was targeting with these action figures, and it wasn't the kiddies. Now, one of the biggest improvements that came about because of these figures was the super articulation. Spider-Man is a very agile and flexible character, and for the first time, we had action figures that could mimic some of Spidey's famous poses. Reaching a whopping 30 points of articulation, Spidey here had joints located at the neck, the shoulders, the wrists, the torso, waist, double joints in the elbows and knees, the ankles, and even his fingers could move so that you can pull off that awesome thwip pose. This broke all of the barriers and set a new staple for action figures that is still seen today. Each figure also included their own display base. Some were as simple as a brick wall painted with a Spider-Man logo that had cool little touches like a camera webbed to the wall. Some were highly detailed scenic pieces. There's even this one that has an articulated lizard built into the base, defeated by Spidey. How freaking cool is that? Most bases included a small plastic prong and had a hang tab on the back so that the base could be mounted on the wall. That plastic prong would help to hold your figure in place, which allowed for an incredibly cool option of displaying your Spider-Man as if he's hanging right off the wall. This is actually one of my favorite features on these figures. So let's take a look at the figures that were included in this lineup. Classic Spider-Man. Based on his look from the 1990s, this Spider-Man figure featured the classic red and blue costume with the larger eyes. This has always been my favorite look for the character, and though many versions of this figure have been released since, this particular one remains to be among my favorite representations of the character in plastic. The Manspider. This is one epic action figure. He's one of the larger figures from this line, standing over 7 inches in height. The detail is amazing on this one, with some excellent shading giving him a dark, menacing look. And the sculpt is amazingly creepy combination of spider parts and human parts. You can even see part of Peter Parker's face meshed in with the spider face. Black Costume Spider-Man. The symbiote costume is always a favorite, so it was awesome that we got this version of Spidey right away in the first assortment. Now, there have been so many variations of the Spidey costume, but this is certainly one of the coolest. Venom. Probably one of the most controversial figures from this series. Toy Biz opted to go with a transformation pose here. It really is a terrific sculpt, where you can even see Eddie Brock's face peering out from inside of Venom's mouth. The problem was that many collectors were really hoping for a nice, superposable Venom figure to fight with their new Spider-Man. Fans would end up having to wait a few years before getting that particular version of Venom. Amazing Fantasy number 15 Spidey. Another Spider-Man variation. This one was actually based on the Wallcrawler's first appearance as drawn by Steve Ditko. The figure was similar to the first with a slightly different sculpt, but did a great job of capturing his original look. Daredevil. The first and only hero that wasn't a Spider-Man variation in this entire line was Matt Murdock. It was exciting to get another Marvel superhero in this superposable style, but this particular version was not the best interpretation of him. He's quite skinny and he's kinda got this hideous grimace on his face. Eventually Toy Biz would produce a better Daredevil figure though. Now this figure also had the first and only short-packed variant in the Spider-Man Classics line, a first appearance yellow Daredevil. He was incredibly hard to find and started another trend that I was not too fond of, the chase figure. Battle Ravage Spider-Man. And the Spidey variants keep rolling in. This one with a battered and torn costume as if he just got out of an incredibly hard-fought battle. Rhino. Another villain of Spidey got the highly detailed release. The scale is just about the right size when compared to Spidey, and this remains to be one of the best versions of this character in figure form to date. Then we come to the two KB Toy Store exclusives. The first being Spider-Man 2099. I was pretty excited to see the release of this figure. Even though it was just another Spider-Man, it was a cool costume that was a great addition to this new scale of figure. The figure even featured a cloth cape attached to his back to mimic the webbing cape. Now the second exclusive was the figure I was the most excited to see, simply because I have an unhealthy obsession with a character from a storyline that most people can't even stand. The Scarlet Spider. Now this ended up being a bit of a bittersweet release for me. You see, when the figure was first announced, this prototype picture hit the net. The figure here looks perfect to the comic books, with a wonderfully sculpted hoodie over his accurate all-red spider suit, complete with a belt and web shooters on the wrist. Now when the figure finally hit KB, he was much different. The sculpted hoodie was replaced with a cloth one, so that the articulation wasn't hindered. Not only did this not look as good, but the color was even wrong. And what happened to his belt? Despite these issues, I was admittedly still very happy to have this figure. And to this day, he and Spider-Man 2099 both fetch a pretty penny. They've become two of the hardest to obtain Spider-Man Classics action figures. So yes, this line did go the route of many Spider-Man lines of the past with all of the Spider-Man variations. But at least they were all based off of actual comic book appearances. Plus, this new scale and articulation style made you want to buy them all. The line could have definitely used more villains for sure, but the appetite of collectors had been whetted. Spider-Man Classics had started a new trend in the world of collectible action figures. Everyone wanted more. More than just Spider-Man, we needed more superheroes in this style. Toy Biz heard the fans, and they listened. And from Spider-Man Classics, a legendary new line was born. But that, my friends, is a story for another day.